I'd like to share a story with you. It's called Old Blue Angel. It was written by William McCarthy. California is majestic, complex, and firmly embedded into the imagination of the world. Most of my family is buried there, as I will be one day. It is 250 miles wide, 770 miles in length. It never came easy. The journey west wasn't a gentle one to make for immigrants that landed on the eastern shores looking for opportunities. And in truth, amongst its vast abundance, California has always had its share of dark shadows. Native Americans were abused, Japanese Americans were put in camps, gold was strip-mined, and post-war white flight echoed the rumblings of the eventual avalanche of sprawling ghettos quarantining African Americans all within the so-called Golden State. It's a complex place. Sure, there's the bouncy tunes of the Beach Boys, but there's also Etta James. Sure, California was depicted as chock full of good old Baywatch fun, but there's also Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath and the backbreaking journey of Dust Bowl migrants. And in a state that's 50% Latino, how did the entertainment business brand these ideas that Californians is full of young, svelte, blonde beach dwellers? Cesar Chavez is in the afterlife, probably still scratching his head at that. Well, a blonde-haired Californian was about to walk out of this place and these realities into my life, and he would travel around the world, play guitar, and stand literally side by side with me through the best of times and through the worst of times, and all from the stage. Enter Alex Halverson. In 2013, after some really lovely chance encounters, my band Augustines began preparing to go out on tour with the scruffy, critically acclaimed Scottish band called Frightened Rabbit. As I've written before, I really got on with their hilarious, ruddy-complected singer Scott and always win, and away we went. It was all kind of a blur. Actually, it was a goddamn train wreck. The night before tour, our veteran tour manager named Mike Dahlke, who was Nirvana's drum tech during Nevermind, hurriedly introduced us to our new guitar tech, Alex, a nervous, skinny, floppy-haired Northern California kid not more than 20 years old from God knows where. Supposedly he had been on one tour before, and apparently with the band Hanson. Mbop? Like, are you fucking kidding me? My buddy Scott has hooked me up with the tour that we really need to shine on, and my new tech has no experience on the road except goddamn Hanson? I was furious. The record label was financially tightening the belt, and decisions were made, and here my band is now, in our early 30s, trying to follow up Rise These Sunken Ships, and this is our A-game? With a 20-year-old shaggy, under-toured kid at the helm, and botched rehearsals. Alex's intro to Camp Augustines was a bewildering tornado of a highly stressed out, completely ragged band members a decade older than him, absolutely in the weeds. To make matters worse, in a typical music industry glaring display of ineptitude, the rehearsal studio our label rented for us to get ready for the tour was without a PA system to even sing out of. Wow. And even worse than that, we had just invested in an in-ear monitoring system and needed to troubleshoot and figure out how to use the damn things and couldn't. My heart was breaking in slow motion and I was becoming consumed by anger. We'd never used in-ears and we hadn't properly walked through the songs and we couldn't find a backup rehearsal room this last minute. No big deal, just a massively important tour with Frightened Rabbit whom we respected, with now only one rehearsal. Frightened Rabbit, a band I actually gave a shit about, which only heightened the anxiety due to the amazing gesture by Scott, even having us at all. In a three-piece rock band, everyone's hands are full at all times. I knew my job as a performer was going to not be just uphill with this catastrophic pre-tour rehearsal, but actually may be impossible, and all in full view of Team Scotland at soundcheck. Good times, we looked like chumps. It felt like we were being punished for something. Our budgets were so incredibly low that through the Rise tours, crew members would only do 1 or 2 tours with us and then quit, even if it wasn't our fault because touring with us just paid so badly. And here we now were in a poorly planned debacle after all the writing and grueling studio hours we'd spent making our record. So unfair. Would Cruel City work? Would Weary Eyes or Nothing to Lose But Your Head crash and burn live? We really had no idea because we couldn't rehearse. The last time we played those songs were in New York in the recording studio, and we were terribly rusty having been in studio land for months. The pressures in that small room in Seattle was asphyxiating, as was the silence deafening. but we did our best to play instrumentally, as Mike and this clearly overwhelmed California floppy-haired kid stumbled around the room trying to fix the loose ends. Mike was a veteran, and it really wasn't his fault, so we didn't bludgeon him too bad. But young Alex seemed like a moving target of our intensely frustrated glances. I was all for letting the kid go. Nothing personal, he was just too inexperienced, and the Frightened Rabbit tour was too important. Our manager at the time told me that this would not be possible, at least not in the short term. After several grimaces and frictions with Rob and Eric over it, I just kind of fell silent, and then I'd stew and start unraveling again. For fuck's sake, look at him. He's fucking 22 years old and scared shitless. Is this a joke? We just sold out Shepherd's Bush Empire and we played national television, and this is how we're starting our second record out. Well, it's fine for you, Rob, because he's a fucking guitar tech, not a drum tech, and we need your help, and we haven't rehearsed. We're really screwed this time, guys. We are so beyond screwed, I'm dead up the array like a goddamn slow-motion guillotine. I'm not feeling very namaste right now, Eric. I'm furious. And on we go as Alex did his best to handle everything that was going on, standing there with a tool belt and with a headlamp on like a bewildered coal miner. I gazed out the window as we drove a couple days to join Frightened Rabbit. After long hours in the van, you eventually begin talking no matter what grudges are being harbored. At some point, I asked Alex where his parents lived, and he looked out into the distant windows and muttered something. "What? I didn't hear you," I said. "She died." My heart sank, and I said that I was sorry. "When did she pass away, man?" "A few days ago." "Like, as in 72 hours ago?" "Yeah." I could tell I had been eating him up, and it felt like he told me out of sheer exhaustion. We pulled over for a piss break at a gas station. I grabbed Eric in the bathroom and told him. We did a fairly good job of concealing it, but I remember watching Alex in the distance as he smoked a cigarette near the van in the parking lot. "Dear God, Eric, look at him, dude. He's shell-shocked. What do we do?" "I don't know, Billy. There wasn't much we could do." I just decided to let it all go and just take my lumps on stage and try to troubleshoot on the fly. I tried to just keep chatting with Alex to make sure he was even stable enough to be out on the road. I asked the kid if he'd ever been overseas. He had. I asked where his dad was, and Alex said he had a stepdad that had left, and his real dad OD'd suicide heroin. "So how'd your mom pass away, bro?" "Suicide OD. I could not believe it. It wasn't even a week ago she'd passed away, and now we are in a cramped van. How was he keeping himself together?" I began to notice similarities in us. Alex had a little sister he worried about. He didn't go the college route, but he was certainly smart. He's lost a lot of friends to drugs, and he was hanging around some going-nowhere-fast people in a going-nowhere-fast town. But Alex is wise enough to not be covered in tattoos like dead-end small-town guys do, and I could tell he was fighting to get away from them. Maybe that's why he didn't want to be home. I guess that's what you do when you're a survivor. You blend in. And I observed Alex doing that during one of perhaps the hardest times in his life. And I could clearly see he'd been doing that his whole life, just as I'd done growing up. Mile after mile we traveled, and no matter how hard it all got, Alex was somehow upbeat and carried a pretty familiar dark sense of gallow humors that touched me. The ability to laugh in the worst of times. I know this humor well. He must have been in immense pain, but nobody from the outside could tell. Nor would we broadcast it. It was as if he was just happy to have his mind occupied and not be home, and we just let him be and stay on the road. I support this wholeheartedly because I could tell Alex was flat on his ass back in the real world like I was at his age, when most kids were going to college and having a blast being young. We started to talk and relate about welfare Christmases when we were young and food stamps, but with hearty chuckles like reunited war veterans. And as much as he touched my heart and I wanted to look after him, there was still a tour to focus on, and my God were we playing catch-up to a very well-oiled Frightened Rabbit and a horrendous start of a cursed tour. Our manager later quit on us out of the blue after that tour, and Augustine's was without a manager for most of the album. We literally limped to the Roundhouse to play our final gig. It is a very behind-the-scenes painful reality for that record for Eric, Rob, and I. And after that final roundhouse show, I was very much shook up from all of it and retreated to Santa Cruz, California for a holiday break. Sometimes it's better to just hide out rather than bother people about Christmas when you don't have family. You just feel like a charity case sometimes, so I just go to a hotel and get a bottle of whiskey. And then Alex called. He sounded as in the wilderness as I was post-tour, and he asked me if we could spend Christmas together, and then drove 5 hours to be with me. And in a chilling parallel, Todd and I later visited the shelter my mom died when we were filming the opening sequences for our documentary. And I was gobsmacked. I'd never actually seen where she passed away, and it was literally adjacent and shared a parking lot with the hotel Alex and I stayed in that Christmas. Thank God I didn't know that, but knowing Alex and I, we would have found a way to laugh. Fast forward to today, 2019. I'm on an airplane to New Orleans to work out a new album campaign. It's my second solo record. Alex just played guitar with me on stage in my shows in both LA and San Diego, and it was damn good to see him. A few years ago, he met a lovely partner named Clementine while on the road with us in France. I was so proud of him. They just fell hard for each other, and I nearly jumped out of my chair. I was so proud when he told me he was moving to France to be with her. I visited them in the countryside the next winter, and it was one of the joys of my life to behold that this funny California kid was really growing up. And I felt quite a feeling of joy that he didn't stay meandering in Northern California, but he bravely moved to Europe to follow love. And hell, maybe the band This Path had opened up for him in some way. Through law of determination and hard work, Alex Halverson now owns his own handyman business and is married to Clementine. They live 2 blocks from the beach in Southern California in Long Beach. He's a very busy man using his technical skills and working hard for his clients who are finally paying him well. Very well, in fact. Do you want to see my van, Bill? He excitedly took me out to the street and pulled open the back doors of a beautiful 2005 dark blue Dodge Sprinter van. Old Blue Angel. It was filled wall-to-wall with tools Alex has painstakingly built up and mounted in his van with great care. And with a twinkle in his eye, he looked at me and said, "Billy, I paid cash for it." I gazed at the van for a long time with my eyes welling up. Definitely the most beautiful van I've ever seen in all my days for many reasons. Congrats, kiddo. Nobody handed you anything easy in this life. Your big heart and determination got you here, and I'm beyond proud of you. Onward, Alex. Billy McCarthy. About a year after writing this, our relationships didn't work out, and Clementine and I split, but amicably. And any breakup is hard, of course, but our underlying love for each other, the pandemic took its toll on many relationships across the world, mine included, and Billy's as well. Clementine and I were always fortunate that we never blamed each other when things went south. Like, to this day, we are still very close, though apart. And during that same time, Billy was going through a breakup of his own as well. He'd always been a bit of a Rolling Stone traveling character, and I would always tell him to get a van. If anything goes wrong, get a van, and I'll build you out a van. I'll build you a home, because that's what you do for people. If you can build a house, and you see someone that doesn't have a house, you build them a house. When you see someone hurting, you do what you can to be there for them, even if you don't know them. That's what a community does. Because no doubt, my experiences are not unique, but I never let them destroy who I was as a person. I would just get right back up and work harder. But sometimes, luck plays a lot into it. There's things that you can't control. You can be the hardest worker, but if you get sick, you can't work past that. You have to adapt. And last year I got sick. I couldn't work as hard as I used to, and I had to really tone it down. I found a place in Long Beach called The Vault. It was advertised as a community of creatives and artists, thinkers. During my transition into less laborious work, my van was taken from me. I lost half of my workshop that I'd been building up. I lost my vehicle, my security, and my backup plan. I contacted my landlord, manager who takes care of Bill and Amy, and I said, I've been going through something. I've been dealing with health issues. My van's gone, the crux of my business, and I need a month to get it together. Move some money around to get a vehicle, to get working again, and just get back on track. Amy told me she would talk to the landlords. At this point, I paid about $27,000 worth of rent. This was September of 2022. I didn't get a written response. Instead, I got a notice put on my door that said, pay in 5 days or quit.